What about when did he start becoming kind of, a pussy hound?
Well, that's a good question. That was sort of a gradual thing, and that sort of had long stages. He'll have a stage where he just like lives alone and he doesn't have any girlfriend. He barely relates to people. Sometimes, following one of his episodes of hospitalization, and then he'll just sort of like get in swing and he'll just run through these strings of girlfriends and stuff. I have to take my hat off to him there. He's had many beautiful girlfriends, and he's had a few lasting relationships with them too. He went out with this woman Fern in D.C. What a gorgeous woman! I mean, just like absolutely stunningly beautiful, really intelligent, really sweet woman. I mean, I think he in some ways that's the one that got away. He really feels like he blew it because she was like really into him. She would have done anything, and just like, what was there not to like? She had a temper, but that sort of bound them together a little bit too. And then she had her kind of slightly.
So what happened?
I'm not sure of the details there, but I think that kind of got into just some really nasty, kind of competitive, who can sleep with whom, kind of, on the side kind of thing, and just, there's sort of the really vicious aspect that love affairs gone bad can get into. And I think, I think she more or less broke up with him, but I'm not really clear.
Was this before he had depressions, or
No. He'd been in the hospital lots of times before that. I mean, just what is Terry's problem in terms of mental illness? Because he certainly does suffer from mental illness. Different doctors have diagnosed it different ways. I think it's there's several aspects to it. First of all, it's brought on by just an unhealthy style of living, and everything I'm saying here, I've said to him. If you don't eat properly, if you don't sleep properly, if you drink and take drugs just without considering the consequences. I don't say that you can't take them in moderation, but just if you combine this really unhealthy lifestyle of not taking care of your most basic needs, then it's gonna like push you over the edge a little bit. And I have seen sometimes, and this hasn't happened for years, but I have seen him where he was really just really not much aware of what was going on in the world around him. And I've seen him other times where he was just like aware of what was going on, but kind of severely depressed, I think. So I think it's, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, though my father was a psychiatrist, and I've heard endless things about this, but I think it's sort of some sort of bipolar type illness where he'll be just really up and like this message I was talking about, like, yeah man, I've got these two chicks that are very up, and then the rest like, fuck it, just it's all bullshit, and it's hard. I think ideally one should be somewhere in between the two, have some
moderation,
have some optimistic and maybe even a little idealistic and unrealistic aspects, but also be grounded in reality too, and not just like soured on the meaninglessness of life, meaningless though it may be.
Does he seem kind of like quixotic to you?
Totally quixotic. I mean, well, actually, I just read the second book of Don Quixote for work, and I was there's a great episode in there where Don Quixote sees this puppet show, and he doesn't realize that it's just a play, and he pulls out his it's a puppet show of some princess being pursued by the Moors, and so Don Quixote pulls out his sword and he starts hacking away at the puppets to save the princess from them, and of course the puppet show guys get totally pissed off at him. What are you doing? You know, and so I think there's a little bit of that in him. You know, when we talk about movies, he'll like get all upset at stuff, and you know. But he's also a lot of his life has struck me as sort of like kind of exercises in failure. I guess that's what the exotic thing, you know, tilting against windmills would be it's sort of like he sets out on these things that he knows aren't going to work, but that's sort of like the whole rationale behind it. Again, this is something I've given much thought to and I haven't quite figured out, but that's kind of what it's about. It's not about being successful at things, it's about failing at things. This is something I think I myself sometimes suffer from too, but like, well, you were saying you were thinking about joining the Foreign Service, and I know Terry recently, maybe you heard about this, he decided he was going to take the Foreign Service test, and he was like, I'm convinced this is going to be, like, I can get some cushy job sitting in, you know, wherever, and just, like, basically looking for some sinecure. And I know somebody who's in the Foreign Service, very nice guy, and I don't know so much about what he does because he doesn't always want to talk about it, but I do know that it involves like real serious work and serious consideration of, you know, foreign policy ideas, and it's like a serious job, and you know, and I don't think this is what he had in mind, and I don't think he and
well, sitting at a desk, it's hard to imagine Terry sitting at a desk
yeah,
for
he's
more
too
than
restless.
an hour.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah. Well, he does write stuff, and that involves
Sitting down.
Yeah, but he is a very restless guy, and he's very suggestible too. He's almost like a child. You know how, like, with a child, you know, if we were talking and we just happened to say the word candy around a child, they'd be like, "Candy! I want some candy!" You know, and there's a certain he's very suggestible. So I sometimes sort of watch what I say around him when because it'll, you know, like, yes, we've got to do that right now. You know, whatever it was I sort of mentioned in passing. I'm like, oh no, why did I say this?